In this video, we're going to learn the brick stitch. The brick stitch is great for columns. It's also great on like a roof or in an area that you have a lot of space. And it's the stitch that's on the outside columns here. And there are different variations to the brick stitch, but today we're going to learn an over 4 brick stitch, and I'll explain more of that. We're going to learn the brick stitch. There are different variations of the brick stitch. My brick stitch is over 4 meshes. Again, the meshes are not the holes, they're the threads of the canvas. To get started, because this is a certain height of canvas and I want my pattern to look mostly 4s, I have to put in what I call compensation stitch. And so my first stitches on the bottom are going to be over 2 and then over 4. And what's going to happen when you get to the top, there won't be enough painted area for you to go over 4, so you're going to go over 3, over 3, over 3 first. And you'll see that as the pattern goes on. And they're called compensation stitches. They're just putting in stitches where you don't have enough room on the canvas to continue your pattern. You can also see on here that I left this row open. That's a personal choice. If you'd like to fill it in, you're more than welcome to. I personally like to see that open row, but it's completely up to you. Again, I made a knot in my thread because I don't have anywhere to secure my stitches. So another waist away knot. I'm just going to stick my thread in, and now they're secure so I can get started. Again, the brick stitch that I'm doing is over 4, but I have to get started for the number of meshes I have, which on this particular canvas is 37. So I'm going to get started on the outside edge, and I'm going to go over 2. Now when I say over 2, I'm going over 1, 2. And I just want to make sure, because I'm using 2 strands, that my thread lays flat. Now I'm going to go over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to drop down. And pretty soon you won't need to count. You'll get your pattern going. So now I'm going to continue my pattern across, going over 2. Over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and down. Now sometimes also, when you're working with 2 strands of threads and you want your stitch to lay flat, you might need to get a little help from your needle or your finger to help the over 4. Now that I've established my pattern, I almost don't need to count anymore because I know I want them to line up, so I know to go there. So I'm putting my last stitch in because, like I said, I like that extra row to show. That's just a personal preference, and it's an over 2 stitch. So now I've got my pattern started, and I put in my compensation rows to get started. So now I know that I want to continue now an over 4 pattern. So I'm going to come back this way. And so because I want them to line up into this row, I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to do that all the way across. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
And now I really don't need to count because I can just follow my pattern across. But I also want to make sure my thread's laying flat, so I pick it up a little with my needle. And you just sort of manipulate it till it gets to where you want it to be. The reason I'm doing now coming up here and down is because when I put this stitch in and I went up like that, if I had come up here, my thread would have fallen out. I would have taken that stitch out. Also, with this stitch, it doesn't really matter as much if you go up or, you know, if you change directions with what I'm doing. It's more making sure you follow the pattern and getting your stitches to lay flat depending on the thread you're using. So I really like using this stitch for stripes. It gives it for something like this. Also on a roof, obviously a brick stitch makes it look like, or a house or something like that, gives it some dimension. So what you can also do is if you're having trouble with your threads laying flat, like you can lift up your canvas and let your needle hang and unwind. And I'm going to finish this row. And you can do that anytime that you're stitching, regardless of the stitch that you're doing. Because your needles, your thread does start to get twisted as you stitch. So now I want to do another pattern. So I want to fill this in. You could work up. I like to work across. It's easier for me. So I know I want to fill this in. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm started on my next set. Across. And that's the brick stitch. So if I were done or needed new thread, I would flip my canvas over and run my needle under these threads to start to lock in the stitches. And I'm just going to run it back probably twice because, so I'm going to run it under a couple times to really secure in my stitches. Later, when I have the canvas, when I have the whole row filled, I'll have a place to run in my waist away knot.